Welcome to Theories of the Third Kind. My name is Aaron. The other host joining us today is Danielson.
Hello.
Now, before we start today's episode, we have a couple of announcements to make.
If you would like to support the show, you can do so by joining our premium subscription service, Supercast. For just $6.66 a month, you can enjoy weekly premium audio episodes and access to our entire back catalog of over 280 plus episodes that are all ad-free.
Or if you want to be a big baller and spend a little extra change and shake that ass, then you can sign up to our premium video version for $9.99. Not only do you get access to our premium audio episodes every week, but you also get the video versions of them as well and all of the bonus content. And to sign up to that, go to theoriesofthethirdkind.com. And right there in the middle of our website, it's going to be a button that says Supercast. You click on it, it'll take you over there, and it takes less than 30 seconds to sign up.
Now, we know things are tough out there right now, so if you can't afford a premium membership, but you still want to help us out, you could do so by leaving us a written review on iTunes or Spotify.
Or you can subscribe to us on YouTube. That helps us out a lot.
However, don't feel pressure to do so. If you don't want to, then that's fine. We just want you guys, girls, aliens, reptilians, Bigfoot, Sasquatches, Chupacabras, ghosts, Illuminati members, underground lizard peoples, whoever or whatever you are, to enjoy the show. Also, remember this episode is entirely human-made. No AI was used or harmed other than for the graphic, which probably wouldn't use it much for the graphic either.
No, not this episode.
No.
All right. So that is the end of the announcements. And today's episode is Ghost Stories 2025. Now, how this episode will go today is that listeners have submitted their ghost stories either via email or they've called on to our voicemail hotline, which is
707-390-0655.
Yes, that is correct. And they've submitted their ghost stories. So how this episode will go today is that we will listen to a voicemail that is over ghost stories or over a ghost story, and then we'll read a ghost story that was submitted via email, and we'll just go back and forth. And that's how the episode will go today. And if you submitted a ghost story and we didn't mention it in this episode, then it means we covered it in our premium episode, which our premium episode today is also listener submitted ghost stories. So don't feel like we ignored you or forgot about you, because we didn't. We just played it on our other episode.
That's right.
All right. So like I mentioned, the first thing we're going to go over is a voicemail that was submitted to us. And this one is labeled New York. New York. I don't know why I said it as if it was two different words, but there you go. All right. So you ready to hear the first one? You ready to get scared?
I'm ready.
What are you dressed up as?
A podcaster.
Nice. I'm dressed up as a lumberjack. Yeah. All right. So we're going to listen to that voicemail right now.
I was upstate New York, pulled over on the side of the road. It was about 3 a.m., 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was a dark, long-ass country road. So there was a train station about half a mile down the road. So I'm pulled over, and I'm just on my phone listening to whatever, on the radio, bullshitting, and I see straight ahead of me a figure, like a silhouette of a person. Big winter coat, book bag, hood up, walking towards me. So I'm like, who the hell is this? It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. How could there possibly be somebody out here? So I wait for this figure to get close, and I'm like, maybe, I'll give this guy a ride or whatever. All of a sudden, bang, hit him with the brights. Flash the brights on him, figure disappears. So I'm like, oh, that was weird. It must just be my, the lights messing with me, my eyes playing tricks on me, whatever. So then I'm sitting there, whatever, on my phone, bullshitting on my phone. All of a sudden, the same figure with the winter jacket on, the hoodie, the book bag, big figure, like 6'2", walking towards me again. So I'm like, this is weird. I just saw this thing, and now it's coming back. It's walking straight towards me. So now I let it get even closer, like maybe like 10 feet from the front of my car. And I'm like, bam, hit it with the brights. And the figure disappears again. Now I'm spooked. And I forgot to mention, I was spooked out the minute I saw this thing. I just got like a weird feeling. I don't know. But anyway, hit it with the brights again, disappears. So now I'm like, what the hell? That had to be a ghost. I'm checking around my car. Like, did it duck out? Is it like around my car? Is it on the side? something? Did he duck down? But no, nothing.
And that's the end of our first Ghost Stories voicemail from New York.
I couldn't tell if he was actually from New York or from the South.
Oh, that was a New York accent. That was either a Jersey or a New York accent.
Not
From
New Jersey.
Brooklyn.
Definitely not like no Massachusetts, but it's the way he said certain words. It sounded like he was from maybe Louisiana or Mississippi.
Oh, the Cajun.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. To recap what happened, pretty much he was sitting there in his truck at 3 a.m. in a parking lot or somewhere, and he saw a hooded figure appear, start walking to him. This individual or figure was around 6'2". He hit it with his bright lights, as in turned on his bright lights, and the figure disappeared. So then he was like, oh, that's weird. He thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. Gets on his phone, starts playing on his phone, looks up. The figure is there again, walking towards him. He allows the figure to get a little closer and then turns on his brights again, and then the figure disappears again. And he thought that maybe the figure like ducked down and crawled under his vehicle or something, but he got out, looked, and it had disappeared, whatever it was.
For one, I would not have gotten out of the vehicle.
Mm-mm.
I would have maybe backed up or moved forward. If he was whoever was hiding was in front, too bad. I would not have gotten out though.
I think maybe sleep deprivation. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, might have played a role. I'm kind of leaning more towards that, but regardless, it was a weird story. And if that truly happened, I would have been freaked out.
Oh yeah. Like I said, I would not have gotten out of the vehicle. Not at all.
All right, so let's get into our next story, which is an email that was submitted from an individual named Tara. All right, I'm going to start it off, and then Dan will pick up. I don't know if y'all are going to make another Ghost Stories episode this year, but if you aren't, that's fine. Anyway, I'm going to write this now. So around 5 or 6 years ago, my cousin told me a story about what happened to her a year prior. She said one night she was asleep, and around 3 in the morning, she shot up and was pretty much paralyzed. What do you mean shot up? Like shot up heroin?
Like she was laying down and she sat up, shot up.
I was like, damn, shooting up heroin in the middle of the night?
But she was paralyzed.
Oh,
so I guess shot up.
Shot up and was like, like that. Okay.
She said she saw a glowing figure with its hands covering its face standing next to her bed. After a few minutes, it started walking, but more like floating toward the door, still facing her. Once it left the room, she fell back down and just fell asleep again.
When she woke up that morning, she thought it was just a dream. So she just went out to the kitchen for some breakfast. She had one of those families that has breakfast together every morning. So she just said that she had a weird dream that night and explained what had happened.
After she finished telling the story, she saw her sister looking legit horrified. She said that the exact same thing happened to her that night. We all assumed that this figure went into her room and then just left and went directly next door to her sister's room.
Her family is super religious, so her mom went into both of their rooms and just prayed for hours, pretty much, and it never happened again.
After she told me the story, she saw how freaked out I was. So a week after that, the bitch acted possessed to freak me out.
But anyway, that's her ghost story. I love you and I'm proud of you, hoes. Happy Halloween, Tara.
I probably would have done the same.
There would be no way I could go back to sleep if that happened to me.
I mean, if she went back to sleep that fast and the next morning she thought it was just a dream.
Probably was a dream.
Probably was a dream.
I mean, if you shot up, that's happened to me. I told you about that when they started me on that fucking medication, Strattera. Horrible medication. Never try it. I started on it. It'd give me like night terrors. One night I fell asleep and I woke up to what I thought was footsteps running towards my door, about to push my door open. And I shot up in pure terror. And yeah, it was crazy. But I was filled with adrenaline and couldn't go back to sleep. I don't take that medication anymore, by the way.
Screw that medicine.
Anyway, sorry I'm such a skeptic. I want to be a believer.
We need more evidence.
Yes. Speaking of evidence, let's play our next voicemail, which is from Mike.
Hi, so my name is Mike. I'm a first-time caller. I'm actually a friend of Aaron's. Hey, what up, Aaron? But I actually have a story about demon and devil worshiping in the woods of my house, my parents' home. So basically, when I was growing up, my dad would always tell me, hey, don't go too far in the woods. You'll get lost. There's some things that you don't want to see back there. There's animals, blah, blah, blah. Like, just making sure I don't do anything irresponsible. One day, it was right before bed, I look out the window, my window faced the backyard, and I see someone out there with like a torch or basically like fire on a stick walking through the woods. And I'm just like, Dad, I run to my parents' room, Dad, what's going on? There's someone in the woods, blah, 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 blah. He's like, oh, just ignore it. You're fine. You'll be all right. Just go back to bed. Okay. Obviously wasn't able to sleep all too well that night. So the next day, my dad takes me in the woods and he shows me exactly what was going on back there. And he said, yeah, there's people that come back here, and they basically worship the devil. There's a bunch of stones in a weird, like they were stationed in a weird way, symmetrically, like it was like a throne, and then there was a sacrificed animal hanging up on a tree, and it would look to be blood in the middle of a pit. Like it was an actual sacrificial like setup. And from that day on, my dad like tore down all the blocks. He had someone clear out all the stuff, and every, I want to say, year or so, it would be the same thing. Someone would come back, set it up, and be very, very, very similar every single time. Maybe different like prints on the actual stone, but yeah, there was just guys in robes that would always come back there and start sacrificing literally 5 minutes in the woods behind our house. So yeah, that's just a nice little devil worshiping story that I grew up with. Have a good one, guys.
Thank you, Mike, for that voicemail. What up, dog?
Yes, thank you for that. I don't know how I'd feel if I found out that there were a bunch of people going in my backyard and worshiping the devil.
Hey, if it's still going on, let us know. We'll show up with cameras and I'll start swinging on them.
It'd be like Bohemian Grove. We're going to
infiltrate it. We'll be like Alex Jones, but not as weird and, all hyped up. But yeah, very weird story. I hope it's not happening anymore, but if it is, let us know. We'd love to investigate and look more into it.
I wonder if his dad knew the people.
It sounded like he kind of did.
Because it's just like, oh, just don't worry about them. Just let them do their thing.
Yeah, it's Dale. It's Mike and his four buddies. Sometimes they, get in a vehicle.
They go back there and pretend to worship the devil.
Yeah.
They're just a bunch of hunters that just,
They just need an excuse to get naked and have like a blood orgy. A bunch of gay dudes.
We're going on a camping trip, honey.
Yeah. Why are you wearing a cloak? Oh, sorry.
So the deer don't see me.
All right. Thank you, Mike, for your story. All right. You ready to go to the next one?
Yes.
Okay. So this next story we have is from April. My name is April B, as in Bravo. I'm a new listener, and I'm currently trying to catch up. And I absolutely love y'all's podcast. I've been listening for the last 3 days, so here's my ghost story. This took place in the current home I live in. I live in Monticello, Arkansas, originally from Houston, Texas. On this particular day, it was a normal day. This house I live in is pretty old.
Sometimes at night, we'd hear running and footsteps through the house. One night, it was so hard the house rattled. I got out of my bed and walked to my kids' room. They were sound asleep, so they couldn't have been the footsteps that I heard.
I go to the kitchen to grab a snack, and I open the cabinet, and the hot sauce bottle flew out and nearly hit my head. So I said, F this, and went back to my room. An hour or so passed, and I could feel something watching me. So I turned and looked out my doorway, and it was dark, and I couldn't see anything.
But my son's walker suddenly rolled into my room by itself. I was frozen in fear for a minute or two. I came to and got under my covers and prayed. The next thing I knew, something grabbed both my ankles to pull me out of bed.
If I hadn't grabbed the top of my bed, whatever it was would have succeeded and pulled me out. I still live in the same house, and that hasn't happened again. But we do still hear footsteps of one or more people running and walking through my house at different times.
Thanks for reading, and let me know if my story is picked for your Ghost Stories podcast. Love, your new favorite fan.
Wow.
Well, it was picked.
Yeah, thank you, April. A good story, terrifying story. If something grabbed my ankles and tried to pull me out of bed, ooh,
I wouldn't be living there.
no way. Especially if the footsteps continued.
It's like if you leave it alone, you're fine. But if you decide to try to look to find out what the footsteps are, it attacks you.
Attacks or tries to, that ghost trying to fuck is what it sounds like.
Something. Give me them ankles.
Yeah. All right, so let's go on to our next story, which is a voicemail from Navy. We're going to play that right now.
Hey, I'd like to tell you guys a ghost story. I was in the Navy, stationed at Naval Base Ventura County, Fort Hueneme. It's in California, just north of Los Angeles. The afternoon, I bought a new truck, drove back to base, and had watch that night from midnight to 4 a.m. Went outside, I don't know what time it was, roughly around 2 o'clock in the morning, to smoke a cigarette. I was sitting on a curb. Hey, sorry about that. My phone died. Naval Base Ventura County, saw a ghost. I bought a brand new truck in the afternoon, went back to base, had watch from 12 to 4 a.m. Roughly around 2 o'clock, I went outside to smoke a cigarette. I was sitting on a curb smoking a cigarette, and 2 parking lots away, which pretty good sized parking lots, about the size of a normal grocery store, there was a shower house that people who lived off base would shower in after morning PT, but I think they were actually meant for reservists when the reservists were in. But I watched somebody walk out of that shower house, which I thought was extremely weird because it was 2 in the morning and no reservists were there at that time. Walked through a dirt parking lot and then into the parking lot where my truck was at, which was the only car in the lot, and stopped behind my brand new truck that I bought that morning or that afternoon. So me thinking I was going to be all stealthy, like, this motherfucker's doing something to my truck, so I think I'm going to like sneak up on him. And I walk over there and there was absolutely nothing there. It was nowhere they could have went without me seeing them. It was a wide open parking lot. It was, freaked me out. First and only time I've ever seen a ghost that I know of. But, thanks for what you guys do and keep doing it.
There seems to be a reoccurring theme. Ghosts like to come towards vehicles or apparitions or spirits. They like to come towards vehicles and just look at them.
We just look at it.
Yeah, just look at it. Do you think maybe it's other people from different timelines, like maybe in the 1800s or 1900s, and they're in that area, and it's 2 timelines, kind of like they kind of bled over into our timeline, and they see that vehicle, and they're like, "What the fuck is that?"
That's a weird ass carriage.
Yeah, and they start looking at it, and then all of a sudden, boom, it disappears, and they're back into their timeline, and they're like, "Damn, I just saw the craziest thing," and they're telling people they're seeing ghosts when they're the ghost.
I was looking at this weird ass carriage and I saw this guy running up to me trying to be all sneaky like, and then all of a sudden everything disappeared.
Yeah, the guy was wearing camo.
He thought I couldn't see him, but he was in a parking lot.
Weird story, but thank you for submitting it.
Yeah, it's very odd that they seem to have this trend of coming towards vehicles and then disappearing.
Very weird. Not as weird as this next story, though. This one kind of freaked me out because yesterday I watched The Missing 411, and there was a part in that documentary where it talks about the Sierra Sounds, which we've covered that before, of those hunters that went up to the Sierra Mountains and they heard, it was like in 1971, they heard those weird sounds of those creatures or whatever. It was like whoop, whoop. And then they started chattering between each other, those creatures or humanoids, and they were like, it's very weird. And this next story reminds me of it. This happened about 2 years ago in early October. I was on a solo hunting trip in the North Cascades National Park. I'd planned to stay overnight, just me, my rifle, and the quiet forest. I found a spot on the ridge that overlooked a narrow valley with a small stream about 250 yards down the slope. It was perfect. Running water, plenty of trees for cover, and a wide view of the mountains to the west. I built my fire, cooked some jerky and beans, and watched the sun dip below the ridge. As dusk settled in, the forest went completely silent, like everything was holding its breath.
Then I heard the weird noises. From across the stream, maybe 300 yards away, it sounded like people talking. 2 voices, maybe male. The tone was strange, deep and rhythmic, like they were chanting or arguing in some foreign language. At first, I thought it maybe was hikers camping on the other side, but the nearest trail was miles away. Also, it didn't sound like any language I've ever heard. It was sharp and guttural, like samurai talk, if that makes sense. I know how crazy that sounds, but that's the only comparison that fits.
One of these beings would speak, and then the other would answer, almost in an angry tone. Then they'd both start talking over each other in this eerie, echoing call that kind of echoed throughout the trees. This went on for about 20 minutes. I sat frozen by the fire, every instinct in me screaming that something wasn't right. Eventually, curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed my flashlight and rifle, and I started to creep down towards the stream, moving as quietly as I could. Now, the moon was up, giving this valley a pale silver glow, allowing me to see somewhat.
I crouched by the water's edge and shined my light across the stream. That's when I saw them. Two figures stood just inside the tree line, tall enough to look human, but the proportions were wrong. Their shoulders hunched forward and their arms were long, too long. They were covered in dark, matted hair that caught the light in patches, and their faces, or what I thought were their faces, were painted red, blood red. One of them had what looked like a bone mask, something carved from an animal skull, maybe deer or elk.
When my light hit them, they froze. For a second, no one moved. I remember my hand shaking so bad I could hear the flashlight rattling. Then, in perfect sync, they turned and bolted. Not away from me exactly, but sideways, deeper into the forest. They didn't make a sound. No branches snapping, no footsteps. They were just gone.
I stood there for a long time, staring into the darkness, listening. The woods stayed dead silent. No crickets, no owls, nothing. I backed up to camp, threw some dirt on the fire, and stayed awake till dawn, rifle in hand. When morning came, I walked down to the stream again. There were prints in the mud, human-shaped, but wider, heavier, like something barefooted had been standing there watching me.
I haven't been back since. I don't know what I saw that night. Maybe it was something ancient, something that was never supposed to be seen. But every time I hear those old Sierra recordings, I get chills because whatever was across that stream, it sounded just like that.
Anyways, thanks for reading this. Maybe someone out there has heard the same thing. I just needed to tell someone. From D.
Wow. That's terrifying.
That is pretty terrifying.
What?
I don't know. I probably would have shot.
You shot it?
I would've shot
But wow, what would you have done if the bullet just grazed, just ricocheted right off and it went, ooh, ooh, and it stood up?
Well, keep firing until there's no more, then be like, all right, I'm done. This is it. This is where
This is how I get taken out. It sounds like the creatures from the game The Forest.
It really does.
Makes me think that there's some ancient tribe that's living in the mountains or the national forest that's in these caverns or caves, and they've lived there for thousands of years, and they come out and hunt people or animals, and that's why a lot of people go missing in the national parks and forests.
I mean, this was at the North Cascades National Park. I definitely wouldn't be staying there overnight. I would have. Then again, he must have traveled deep into the woods, so he couldn't just leave.
Yeah, that's like my biggest fear. Do you remember whenever we went camping in Maine and that bear came outside our bear was walking around our tent? I was like,
Man.
this is how I fucking die. A bear attacks me.
We were both in separate tents, and it's just
It's
like,
like, Dan, you hear that?
yeah, I hear that. What the fuck is it?
It's a bear. As a bear came and walked around our tents. I was like, oh God, we're dead.
This is it.
We didn't have nothing. We didn't have no weapons. We didn't have anything.
No,
That was terrifying though.
that
as
was
well.
terrifying. Then I realized there was only black bears in Maine.
Yeah. So if we would have jumped up and scared it and it didn't have cubs, it probably would have ran away.
Yeah,
Still though, it's a bear.
still a bear at night. You probably freak it out. It'd probably get freaked out and start attacking.
I'm afraid of it slapping the tent.
That's what I was afraid of. I'm just like looking around, like, oh shit. Couldn't see nothing. I didn't
Yeah.
want to open the tent either.
I didn't
Open it up,
want
it'd be
to
like
either.
right there.
Yeah. All right. So let's get on to our next ghost story, which is a voicemail from Jenna. And we're going to play that right now.
Hey, it's Jenna. I just wanted to share something pretty wild. There's actually 3 things that happened to me growing up, very personal, very real. They're all connected, and I'll never forget these stories. Again, there's 3 stories. So when I was about 7 years old, I was in my parents' basement with 2 friends. The lights were off. but it wasn't pitch dark. The sunlight was coming through the small basement window. We were pretending to play house because we were young, laying down like we were going to sleep. And out of nowhere, from the right side of the basement, came this pitch black shadow. Standing upright, it was shaped like a person, and it was moving in slow motion. It wasn't just dark, it was darker than that. It was something that it looked like it was a filled-in shadow. You could feel it staring straight into your soul. The three of us were just frozen there. None of us could move. We watched until it disappeared. It somehow slipped between two doors that were closed. The second it was gone, we bolted upstairs, screaming for my mom. My mom came downstairs and tried to tell us that there's nobody there, and there wasn't. Story 2, the bedroom. A couple of years later, I was trying to fall asleep in my room. My eyes suddenly opened, and there it was again, that same black figure, standing at the foot of my bed. I couldn't move. My whole body was again paralyzed. My heart was pounding. I could barely breathe. I tried to yell, "Mom," but nothing came out. Finally, with everything in me, as I was sweating, it took forever. It felt like eternity. I finally was able to mutter, "Mom!" Right as I said it, it disappeared. My mom ran in, but no one was there. No brothers, no prank. It was just me, shaking and sweating. She looked, and again, nobody was there. It was just whatever that was. And I believe it was a demon. Story 3. Years later, I was around 20 years old, and it happened again in a slightly different way. I was laying in bed and felt this heavy, dark presence in the corner of my room. It didn't move, but I could feel it. It felt very dark and evil. Then the bathroom lights flickered. Something in me snapped. I sat up and I said out loud, "In the name of Jesus, be gone. You are not welcome here." And instantly, I felt peace. The air felt lighter. I prayed a little bit longer. All right, so my other voicemail got cut off, so I'm going to continue where I was. So I said, "In the name of Jesus, be gone. You are not welcome here." And instantly I felt peace. The air felt lighter. I prayed a bit longer, and then I fell asleep easily. The feeling of darkness never came back. I'll never forget those moments. They made me realize how real spiritual warfare really is. And it also showed me how powerful the name of Jesus truly is.
Well, those are 3 interesting stories, all with the same pattern of a black spirit or entity or demon, whatever it is, coming around.
Yeah, definitely would freak me out, especially being, what, she said 7 years old in the basement playing
Yeah.
and then seeing something like that.
And then it happened again, and then it happened again. But the final time, she was like 20.
Yo, I had this crazy thought in my head, and it's probably gonna sound insensitive. It's no offense to anybody that's religious, because we all do this. I know we all do this. You know how when Jehovah's Witness come around and you don't want to stand there and listen to them, like you already tell them like, "No, I'm not interested," or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
What if it's like the demons, like they're not affected by the whole religious scripture and all that. It's just once you start saying it, they're like, "Oh fuck, here we go again," and they just fucking leave.
So like demons are kind of like out there trying to collect souls. They're like, all right, let's go to the next house. And then they're like, hey, so we visited this person when they were 7 and they looked a little freaked out. Let's go visit them again. Okay, it didn't work this time. Let's go visit them again. And then like, oh man, they're still living good. Oh damn, look, they got Jesus in their life.
They're
See
like,
you later.
we don't want to deal with this one.
Yeah, hey, that could be a valid reason.
I was just
you
thinking,
know?
it's like, because some of these stories are like, as soon as they started like saying part of the scripture and all that, nothing happened. It's just like, yeah, again, not saying all of them in that way, but it's just the thought came to my head, just like, wonder if the demons are like that. They're just like, oh, I don't want to hear this one. No, thank you. We're not interested. They just leave.
I would have a couple questions if I could ask them if maybe a person in the house dip their toes into the occult, or maybe even purchased something that is old and antique from a place, or maybe had a Ouija board or did a summoning or something with the intent of opening some pathway towards the unknown, because that
Or
would allow something in.
or go somewhere and brought something back.
Or what?
Go somewhere to some place that might be
Haunted or
haunted.
be possessed, and then you bring it back with you. Yeah.
Because I watched the movie The Old Ways.
I saw that on Netflix. I didn't watch it, but I seen that it was on Netflix.
Not too bad, actually.
Okay.
It's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Worth the watch.
Well, you'll have to let us know, Jenna, if any of those other things that I mentioned might have been the cause of it. Otherwise, thank you for your voicemail.
Yes, thank you for that, Jenna.
All right. Now we are going to get on to a ghost story email submitted from Eric. He starts off by saying, I recently listened to one of your listener ghost story podcasts. Boy, do I have a story for you. I don't share this story very often, but here we go. Back in 2004, my wife and I rented our first apartment. My wife's brother and girlfriend moved into the apartment right above us the same day. We were renting from my mother-in-law. My son was just a baby, a few months old at the time. He could crawl and maybe say a few words if you used your imagination.
After a couple months living in the apartment, we noticed that things would be moved around. For instance, I had a gigantic entertainment system or center that housed my TV, stereo, and PlayStation at the time. When I came home from work, I put my wallet, keys, and any spare change I had on the corner of this entertainment center. The next morning, my keys or wallet would be behind the couch or in a random cupboard in our kitchen. After this started happening, my son started waking up screaming at 3:30 a.m. every day. Scary, he would scream at the top of his little lungs.
After about 2 weeks of this, my wife and I needed a break and a good night's sleep. We sent him off to my parents and settled in for the night alone together. Oh. After dinner and a movie, my wife suggested we go to his room and use the Ouija board. What the fuck is wrong with your wife? I'd be like, no, let's go back to our room and
Play 10 Toes to Heaven or something.
and then she'd be like, oh, my tummy hurts. No, I'm just kidding.
I got a headache.
Anyways, so back to the story. His wife suggested that they go into her son's room or their son's room and use the Ouija board. He said in the email, big mistake. We used the Ouija board. We started off by asking if anyone was there. The answer came on the Ouija board, yes. We both looked at each other and asked if we had moved the cursor. Neither of us had.
We continued to ask if it was good or evil. It replied, vile. Then we asked it, angel or demon? It replied, demon. I then told it to stop being a pussy and fucking with my child and come for me instead.
Oh, shit.
At this point, the room got cold. We could see our breath. I told the entity that I wasn't afraid. And then the cursor moved to goodbye.
This is where it gets nutty. I broke the board over my knee, as in the Ouija board, and went to throw it in a dumpster. We sat in the living room talking about how crazy the experience was, and then we heard something from upstairs. It sounded like heavy furniture being moved across the floors. The only thing is, that's where my brother-in-law lived, and he and his girlfriend moved out 2 weeks prior. There was nothing in the apartment.
I went up and looked around, since they had a key, and nothing seemed out of place. I went back down to my apartment and looked out the window into the parking bay. We were the only ones there. Everyone else in the fourplex was gone. As my wife and I were talking about how crazy this all seemed, we heard a faint whistling. It kept getting louder and louder, like it was coming down the steps from the top floor. It came into our fucking kitchen, and then it stopped.
Moments later, our very heavy pneumatic arm security door slammed hard enough to shake our apartment. This wasn't a door that could be slammed shut. I ran outside to look around and saw nothing. There were no people anywhere to be seen, and there wasn't enough time for anyone to get away that quickly. We packed a bag and left right then and there. We went to my parents' house and told them the story, and they thought we were crazy. To this day, they think I just didn't want to pay rent.
I don't know what it was, but there was something in that place. Even in the light of day, when I went back to get the rest of our things, I had goosebumps the entire time and felt like I was being watched. I never believed in any of the weird stories people told about ghosts or possession or anything like that. Now I'm a devoted listener to your podcast and anything involving the paranormal. Thanks for reading, Eric.
Wow.
Well, Eric,
You shouldn't have went into your son's room with the Ouija board. First of all, it's the first mistake. Second mistake is,
calling it a pussy.
well, that's the third mistake. Second mistake is using the Ouija board. And then the third mistake is calling it a pussy and then you breaking it. You're not like sealing anything shut. That's not sealing it shut. That's allowing it to be open.
Yeah, you like broke the door open.
Yeah, left it open and allowed it to come in. And you invited it to come to you. It was probably trying to attach itself to your son or get to your son. It wasn't there permanently. But by you going there and offering yourself up, you have now allowed this entity, this demonic figure, whatever it is, to then stay there permanently going after you, which it can eventually make its way to your son. So, sucks for you, man.
I don't know. I don't think I would have said all that, but I would have done like, just go away, please.
Yeah.
Then again, I
might have pulled a Jenna.
Pull a Jenna? Scripture?
You know, in the name of Jesus, get all pissed off and say, hey,
be gone, demon. Listen to the word of God.
Yeah. That would have been way better than friggin' calling it a pussy.
100%.
Each their own. All right. So now we are going to listen to our next voicemail, which is from my Mariah.
Hi, my name is Mariah. I was calling to tell you my ghost story, but my ghost story is not really a ghost story. It's more like an orb story. So when I was little, I lived in a 2-story house in Michigan, and we had a basement. And every summer, my cousins from Arizona would come to Michigan to like live with us because their dad passed away in a motorcycle accident. So it would be my 4 cousins and 3 siblings, so 8 kids total in the house. And I had this blanket that I had since I was a little kid, and it was my favorite blanket, and I couldn't fall asleep without this blanket. So my cousins would like to hide my blanket from me right before bed. And there was one night where I couldn't find my blanket before bed, and I was upstairs, and I didn't want to wake anyone up, so I left all the lights off. And I'm searching in my room. I go and search in my brother's room, and then I'm in my sister's room, and all of a sudden this like bright light is just kind of zigzagging in my sister's room, almost like edging me to go towards it. So I start to follow it, and it takes me downstairs, and then it takes me into like the basement. And we were always scared of the basement because it's just like a black hole, and it wasn't finished. There was no carpet. It was just concrete and a toy box and a pool table, and then like storage boxes. And so when I opened the door, I remember not being scared, which I typically would be because it like was so bright it lit up the stairway going downstairs. And so I went downstairs and I opened up my toy box, and there was my blanket. And then it like edged me to go back upstairs, and then it just disappeared. So yeah, I just wanted to call and give my story.
Well, that is a scary story. I mean, I know it's not a ghost story, but it's an orb. You lose your blankie as a kid. All of a sudden you wake up and there's an orb and it starts going, and you're just like, fuck it. I'm going to follow this orb. And it takes you down into the basement, it opens your toy box, and there's your blankie. First of all, how the hell did it open the toy box? It's an orb. Second, what color was this orb and how big was it? And then what happened to the orb after it opened your toy box? Did it disappear? Where'd it go? Do you still have the blanket to this day? Have you seen any other orbs? These are the questions that I want to ask.
I mean, her cousin would always hide the blanket. So it sounds like this orb was a friendly one, at least.
Yeah, maybe like a family member who had passed away or something.
Yeah, because unless it wasn't the cousin that was actually hiding it, it was this orb and was luring you down into the basement. But I think seems like it was a friendly one.
Would it be classified as a ghost story? Yeah, I'd classify it as a ghost story.
It could be. I mean, paranormal.
Yeah.
So, works. Thank you for that voicemail, Mariah. We appreciate that.
Yes, thank you so much. Now we are going to move on to our last voicemail, and it is from...
Someone special.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to play that right now.
I grew up on a street that never really felt right.
We could feel it the moment the sun went down, like the air itself was heavy and watching you. It wasn't just our building, honestly, it was the whole street. While we were there, 2 women threw themselves from our building, both dead. But it didn't happen before we moved in. It happened while we were there. After the second one, it just started feeling darker somehow. You'd hear random noises, things would shift at night, and sometimes it just felt like someone was in the room with you. One night I had this dream about my sister. She was standing on the balcony railing, just staring out into the darkness. I kept calling her name, but she didn't turn. Well, when I woke up the next morning, my mom was screaming. She found her tiny footprints on the balcony ledge. You know what the creepy part is? The balcony door was always locked. We lived high up on the 6th floor. My sister was too little to reach. We just couldn't explain it. After that, we kind of stopped talking about it. We stopped talking about all weird things, but it didn't actually stop happening. My sister once woke up and saw someone sitting on her bed. A woman, long black hair, dressed in black. Her back was turned to my sister. No one in our house looked like that. She was so scared. She just froze, turned away, and waited for the woman to be gone. Eventually, I moved out, just down the street, but still close enough that I could see our old building from my window. I thought maybe I had left all of that behind me, but I was wrong. One night I was trying to get my son to sleep and I heard a woman's voice from the next room. She was whispering. She said, "Is she asleep yet?" And a little girl answered, "Not yet." My son was beside me. I was terrified. I jumped up and locked the door and called my father. He came over right away. He looked through the entire apartment. There was no one. I didn't even know anyone who sounded like that. I was trying to convince myself that it was nothing. Maybe I was imagining it. But just after that, I just tried to forget about it. A man in the next apartment took his own life. Same tragedy, same street, same feeling in the air. That's when I realized maybe it's not the building that's haunted. Maybe it's the street. The street itself is haunted. Even now, sometimes when it's late and quiet, I still feel it. That same heaviness. Like the street remembers me. And it's still waiting.
Damn.
Fucking streets ain't made for everybody.
Nah.
Apparently, people...
Street gangster.
Yeah. Apparently, the streets call to the people and have them, eating themselves off balconies.
Kind of reminds me of that dog bridge.
That's exactly what it reminds me of, too. Hey, I got a question. When she said her sister's footprints were leading up to the ledge, was she jump did her sister jump off? Or was she just saying her sister just
She had a dream that her sister was on the ledge going to jump off and she was calling and her sister wasn't hearing her. Then that next morning, her mom saw footprints that led to the window and we're outside on the ledge.
Oh.
But the windows were always locked because living on the 6th floor.
Damn. And then she moved apartments, but across the street.
Yeah, she could still see her previous apartment.
And then...
Or her parents' apartment, I guess.
She was putting her kid to bed and heard somebody say, "Are they asleep yet?" And then a little girl answered, "Not yet."
Mm-hmm.
That. And then somebody in the next apartment over killed themselves. No, I'd be out. Wherever you live, I'd be gone.
That street, no thank you.
No.
Sayonara. Holy shit.
Yeah, that's crazy. But thank you for that voicemail.
Yes, thank you very much for that. I think that actually creeped me out a little bit.
Yeah, it did. And that's a great voicemail to end on. And if for some reason you can't get enough of us, you can sign up for our premium episodes, which you can get access to those by going to theoriesofthethirdkind.com, click on the Supercast button, and it'll take you over there. And we released another ghost story. This is listener submitted ghost stories 2025. So it'd be kind of like a part 2 to this one. So, like I said previously, if you submitted a ghost story and we didn't play it here, then you can go over to our premium episode and listen to it there. And that's where your story will be featured at. But I don't have anything more to say other than thank you for all your submissions.
Yes, thank you for these. Some of them were questionable, but honestly still kind of creepy though.
But happy Halloween. Stay safe, trick or treating. If you suspect any of your candy has drugs in it, send it to us. We have our P.O. Box address on our website, which you can mail that to us, and we will inspect your candy for drugs.
That's right. Aaron will test them himself.
I will. But with that being said, I want to thank you for joining us today and thank you for your support and love. Without you, we could not do this.
That's right. Much love.
So with that being said, Dan, you want to roll us out?
Sure will. It's okay to be out of this world with your thoughts.
Because you are not alone.
Ooh.
Happy Halloween, bitch.